Okay. All right. I'm here. I've had had a couple of hiccups that nobody's aware of because it didn't seem like I was streaming. Okay. Good, good, good. What is going on? Oh, engage with my audience. Start a Q&A. Yeah, sure. Um, ask me something and I will answer it. Oh, I got the Q&A thing on. I'll see. I don't know how this works. Hover. Okay. All right. Trying something new. Trying something new here. Okay. In the interim while I'm waiting for folks, if anybody shows up here, I'm waiting. I thought I can go through this. I'm going to go through this really fast because I've done this before. But I talked about in another stream how I was redoing. I think it was on the Behind the Screens channel. I may have linked to it in a community post. This idea, this little adventure, I almost think is too much of a word. You can go in that stream and get the details. I just want to go through because I reformatted. So originally I had it in a one-pager type. I wasn't very happy the way it looked. And I think just how I was doing it just didn't really, it didn't suit that look. It was, I just didn't like it. This is actually still a one-pager though. It's split up differently and now it's formatted as a booklet. And this is, I think, going to be, it's pretty much its final form. And I find some typos or whatever. But here I have this kind of the map I made, and then I've got this. So basically, and then the back. So it really, it's one page flipped. So I was happy to finish that. I'm pretty, and I also got to be more designy and just have a little bit more, just a better layout. So now I have kind of a timeline over here with some extra information over here, and then on the other page I have some kind of like it's mostly the same information as was before. It's just reformatted a little bit. I did add some things here with some kind of smaller things going on, some random events if you need them. I did add some things here with just giving some random names. So I'm kind of happy with that. And I posted that up for patrons. I'll probably put this up. I don't know. I'm going to do more of these. I don't even know if they really make sense as a kind of product thing because it is really small. But just there's time and energy and everything put into it and thought. But I don't know if it's something that if I was going to put this out as a product, maybe it's better off I come up with a few of them and then put them up as something altogether than to have them as little separate ones. So they're kind of nice as little separate ones. And I feel like if I was going to a con somewhere, I could have some of these printed out and sell them for like $4 or $5, kind of thing. I feel like they're maybe sort of, whatever. Anyhow, that's done. I'm pretty happy about that. If you're a patron, you can get a hold of it. Like I said, if you're not, you can get it on Patreon. Maybe I'll throw a link in there because I do have it set up so you can buy it from Patreon. I may put it up on itch. Who knows? But I was really happy with the kind of. I guess I'm really just happy with sort of this redesign I did, and I really like my map here. It's just a very simple. I didn't put a hex. I didn't do it as a hex map because it's not really about the hexes part. I think I mentioned in the stream. You could probably do this all as one hex. Or you could do it in maybe 2 or 3 hexes, really depending on how you want to split, if you want to split some of these things up. But it's not about the travel part. If it was part of something else, I could do that. But it's not. The other thing, I guess, so I have a couple things on the docket, I guess. Oh, here I have, oh yeah, that's Reddit. There was another, so last night, hold on a minute. Last night, let me switch to myself. Let me just get this. Let me get this, as I probably should have done before. Let me get organized here. All right, so last night I played in a liminal horror game. Hey, Mr. Rourke. Yes, it has achieved its final form. Exactly. I played in a liminal horror game. Specifically, that's where I'm going to drag out the links if I can find them. Specifically in a version of liminal horror called Liminal High School. I'm just grabbing that, or just so I can share the link. And also, and this was the particular adventure. Okay, now I can switch back. Okay, Switching back. All right. Whoop. Okay. So first of all, liminal horror, I guess, is based on Cairn, which is based on, you can go blah 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 right into the odd, I think, and anyway, down the line. This is by Evelyn Moreau, I believe, right? Is that right? And it's really fun. It was really fun. I don't know if there's any screenshots. I don't own, and there's no screenshots, unfortunately. I don't own the. Actually, I might. I don't know if I did. I don't know if I don't remember if I bought this bundle or not. It might have been one that I meant to. I always bundles come up and I mean to get them and I forget. I don't know if I got it or not, but it was a lot of fun. So basically, you're playing as I think we're end up playing as middle schoolers on doing a trick or treating in. Oh, I guess I should go over. So the adventure we're playing as this one, which is a Nate Tremay Halloween hex crawl, Pilgrims of the Nighted Path, and this one's got some screenshots and stuff. And we were. Can I? Whoops. Oh, interesting. I actually just wanted to click. Okay, I wanted to blow up the picture a little bit. Can I blow that up? Well, it's not really blown up. Anyhow, we're playing as middle schoolers in this St. Ambrose, Louisiana, and basically going out for trick-or-treating, and hilarity ensues. I think as part of the character setup, we each of us had a costume, and we had, as always with some of the things that I guess I don't remember. Sometimes, especially with this, because I'm not super familiar with it, as I am with, say, something that's BX based, let's say, I don't know the hierarchy or the lineage of what comes from where. I like Cairn, but I feel like Cairn sometimes gives me or wants to go through more so he wants to go through like generating your character maybe more than I want to. I think sometimes it's fun. I think when I remember I playing in one thing at a PAX, I think we're going through all the character stuff, and there was just kind of a lot to it, and it was maybe I was like, I don't know if I need this much really for kind of a one. I guess it's ultimately it's probably your miles may vary on whether going through having a bunch of characteristics and stuff is going to help you as someone getting into their character, or if it's just kind of like, well, I'm just rolling a bunch of dice for stuff that's probably never going to come. So, for example, my character was stout with an elongated face or head, which elongated seems weird. There probably is other words you could use, like has a narrow or long face. Maybe is one though. I guess why the long face might have it doesn't mean you have a sourpuss on all the time, but really like you have a long, but elongated. I mean, it seems almost like you're a mutant. You're stout with an elongated head. It's like, what am I? Did I get that? Trepanning, was that what it's called? Where they would compress? I was like, what's, or is that trepanning the surgery thing? I don't remember. Anyway, there's some things a little bit weird, and it's kind of like, how useful was it? Like, it didn't, and also, of course, it's going to be somewhat adventure specific. In our case, that I was stout with an elongated head never ever came up in anything we did in the night, which is fine. And it doesn't have to. Right. But sometimes I just find there's more of that than maybe I personally need or require. But it didn't take a long time. And we rolled that up. We had but every time I play through one of these Cairn or Cairn likes or Cairn kids, or maybe it's more specifically into the odd things, I do really appreciate the weird items that you get. So I had this I rolled up a God, what was it? Some kind of weird, like, it was just like a weird book that I got at a old bookstore, used bookstore. And it just had kind of lore stuff in it, which is great because I'm going into stuff and like we find a skull in the street. And actually, that was one time where I didn't look it up and I wanted like, oh, I can look it up. But other things would come up and there was some names that were dropped, kind of lore, mythological figures in this area. Like I think one was like Mama something or other, like Mama. It's like, oh, who's Mama? Let me look it up. Oh, I'll look up in the book. Who's Mama? Right? Get some information on that. And they're just fun because something like a book of lore is just great because all it is helping the GM, helping the referee run the game. That's all it is, because lore is only going to help characters do stuff in the area, either by giving them more information or Well, just by giving them information, any information, I think you're just making them feel more in the world. You're giving them more choices. You're giving them more options. You're just giving more, right? And I think those things. This is where I think you run into one of those problems that some games run into, and not so much the games themselves, but how they're run, is this tendency to want to gate all the information. Like someone says, "Oh, you got to watch out for Mama," and it's like, "Ooh, like I'm from here. Like, what do I know about Mama?" And so it's like, better make a knowledge check. It's like, well, that's fine, but then if you fail the knowledge check, do you get nothing? And then it's, I think it's almost counterproductive. It's like, don't you want, like, one, reward the character, reward the person for having this quirk or this item or whatever, which is just fun because when you have items that you can't ever use, they never worthwhile, it just feels frustrating or it feels annoying. I mean, those are almost the best case scenarios of, oh, I have this thing and I can never use it. I'm holding on to it. Like, why do I have this thing occupying an inventory slot if it's no good? Or, well, I picked this this background or whatever, but it doesn't do me any good. That stuff's not fun, especially when it seems like these things should be, these things should have meaning. These things should have value. So it's like, oh, I look it up in the book, right? And then if you gate it behind the roll and you miss the roll, and and not that you have to do this, but oftentimes they're like, well, you don't really know anything. Like, oh, it's like, well, it's one thing if you're going to get something extra out of it. Like, well, there's a way to run that roll where if you miss the roll, you still get the main points, but maybe there's some, like you heard that Mama is deathly afraid of running water. It's like, ooh, okay, that maybe you only get that on the knowledge check, but you get something else. But basically what I'm saying is that I find that gating information for the most part is never a good, especially if it's kind of at all core to whatever you're trying to do. I just don't think it's ever a good idea because it's really, you're just hurting yourself. You're just making it more difficult. I think the idea maybe is that we're going to go, well, this didn't tell us anything about Mama, but we're going to keep pushing and pushing and try to find it. But often it just means you're going to go, okay, I guess we don't know, and just kind of step back or, oh, well, right? Or it becomes that dreaded, like, well, let me try kind of deal. So I guess it's a long way of saying, though, what these objects do is they give you, we're just playing these kids. We don't have computer skills or whatever, but having this book as just an item that you get, like, here's this book, carting it around. Here's this cool thing you can do. It's, I don't think it's overpowering. I just think it ends up empowering in a good way. And it just means that as a GM, you have another way of getting info to your players without it seeming like you're feeding them, because it's player led. It's up to me to take this book I have and say, I look in the book to try to read about Mama. And I think I established, because I think the GM said, well, what is this, like, what is the nature of this book? So I think the game, I think, doesn't develop at all what the book is. It's like a book of weird lore, and then it's up to you as a table, as a player or character, whatever, to figure out, well, what is this weird lore to you, right? So in this case, I specifically said it's like a building. It's the building. It's a history of the town. Like, this is like from an old book, maybe from the turn of the 19th century or something. Maybe it's a reprint of something, but it's this kind of old book about the history of the town and its peoples and stories and tales and stuff, which made sense. And it worked in this instance in particular. But that was really fun. And then one of the other players had some, it was a little bit weird because we were playing like 11, 12, 13-year-olds, had some weird drug that they could take that I think let them see things no one else could see, to borrow a phrase from Big Trouble in Little China. And that worked out well because we end up at a crossroads where a devil-like character wanted to tempt us for candy. And I'll get into candy things. I thought that was really, really good too. And then he took the drug. He wanted to see if it was really, really a demon, really Lucifer, or whether it's just someone kind of crankpot sort of playing a prank. And it really was Lucifer. And, you see his 10-foot tall, whatever. And that was really kind of fun too. But so I like these items. They don't necessarily have a wide scope. I think the drugs thing, which maybe is the most powerful, I think had 3 doses, maybe, or 2. So it's not like you can use it over and over and over again, but works for kind of one encounter essentially. But they're really fun. And I keep reminding myself, I don't always love like they're over the, just my style isn't always the same. Like, I don't necessarily want to have an Into the Odd kind of, I felt like some of those were sort of over the top, not in a bad way for Into the Odd, but it's not necessarily for my game. But I keep reminding myself, yeah, you should probably have more where you've got some weird thing, or weird or interesting, I should say. It doesn't have to be weird because that might not be the tone of your adventure, the tone of your world, whatever, but just an interesting thing that has maybe limited uses, maybe a limited scope, but it feels good to use them. And in games, like a lot of the games that we enjoy, where you don't have a lot of stuff, especially starting off, why not give somebody something? And I think the other thing too, and not that they all have to be this way, but they're not combat stuff. This isn't like a giving away. I'm giving you wands of magic missiles, so you just go pew pew on stuff. That's not it, right? My book of lore doesn't help in a combat sense. It's not. I mean, I suppose I could beat somebody over the head with it, but that's not really. That's not what it is. The drug thing isn't a combat thing, so it's not pushing us into what I think is sometimes the other issue. I think I have a lot of things is where they just give you. Let me give you more combat abilities. Let me make you kill things faster. But that doesn't. I mean, not that this game is about killing things anyway, but I feel like I want to lean into things that give you more possibilities. Not to say you couldn't figure out a way to potentially use the drug in a violent encounter to do it, which is great because I feel like that rewards, creativity and whatnot. But it's not just like, let me give you a bigger hammer. It's like, yeah, we already have hammers and whatnot. So that was really good. We had costumes. My character was dressed up as a knight. And he also had this thing of talking formally and also being a little bit rude. So he was really going around acting like a knight, and it's, and I wasn't playing up the fact that he's only a few times. I remember he's 12, but that was fun. And it's a fun thing. Now, the thing about the candy, I guess this is just for this Halloween thing, but it was really interesting. And it really was making me think about it. Now, there's a lot of things that you can't, or I can't generalize, or I wouldn't want to generalize. And one of those things, so I guess let me go over the concept first. So in the game, candy essentially is experience points, and we could turn in 500 candy to pump up one of our attributes. And there's strength, there's dexterity, I think control is another one. There might have been one other one, and maybe there was another one. And of course, here's your hit protection. I don't remember. And I don't know if you could bump up your hit protection, but as you're doing things, if you're failing, you're losing some of those points. But you could kind of get, so you could turn in basically 500 for kind of a level up. You could, so I think what I ended up doing when I got to 500 candy is I actually rolled 3 6s. I rolled an 18 and I put it on my control because I had a spell. And the spells, the way they work in the game is you get a spell, which ends up being kind of 2 words. And that was fun too. A different way of doing kind of ad hoc spell casting that I like, because I have ad hoc spell casting in my game, which I appreciate. This one seemingly was something similar, but it was words, and it wasn't words. In some games, or I don't know, I haven't read a lot, but some of the ones I've seen that are word based will have something like I don't know, maybe this all of them work. I don't know. I feel like they'll do something with like a control word, like a verb and something. This wasn't like that. It wasn't like fire, spark, or something. I don't know. It was sand trap. And so I actually built this my character's little backstory. So his dad was a groundskeeper at a golf course, and that they kind of worked and lived right kind of off the golf course. And sand trap was fun because it was like the sand trap of the golf course, right? So from what I understand, and having not read the rules and everything, is you can do different things with it. Just has to kind of embody sand and trap. Is basically it. Doesn't have to be. It's not that I cast something that literally creates a sand trap on a golf course, though I could. It should just embody the elements of sand and kind of a trap, right? This should embody sort of trap and sand. So you have a lot of freedom, but you also have to figure out how it fits the theme. And I did end up casting the spell, and I used it to create kind of a quicksand effect, which is a trap. And of course, quicksand has sand in the name, so that seemed pretty apropos. And that worked out really well. And there's a mechanic that you can generally you lose the spell. You've cast it, it's gone, and then I guess the next day you can get it back, or you can roll against your control to retain the spell. But if you fail that roll, a couple of bad things happen to you. So when I made my character and I decided to go with the spell, and I rolled those 3Ds, I rolled a 18. I decided to switch, because I think I was in Dex, but I think according to the rules you could swap to. So I think I swapped my Dex with control so I could have the highest control. I had to leave slightly early, so I only got a chance to cast it once during the gameplay, but it was fun. It was a very good effect, and I was able to roll to keep the spell. And actually, when I got my 500 candy, I actually bumped up my control to 19, thinking that I might have opportunities to cast it more and just build a strength onto a strength. Just make it that I can just cast and cast and cast. And I suppose if you get one more, if I could have gotten one more on there, I could have had 20, and I could have cast it and never lost it because the ties go to you unless there was some kind of modifier. So that was all good. Now the thing with the candy though is candy is your experience points. But what I liked about it, what was interesting in the way this is done, and I don't know because I don't own the adventure, whether it's something I don't know whether it's something from Liminal High School that the referee, the GM converted, or if it's something as part of this Halloween hex crawl. But candy's your experience points, right? Okay, I think you figured that out. And you can turn in 500 candy for this kind of thing. Great. And you go into different houses, you're collecting candy, but you can also lose candy. Okay. And the thing is, what's really intriguing about it is, oftentimes the losing of experience points, if it exists in a game, is kind of controversial. A lot of people don't like it, right? Probably more so in terms of losing a level, but nobody likes to lose experience points, and it feels weird because what does it mean, right? And vampires and things like that, I think, are often like, look, it's like they're draining your life force, and that life force, your essence, is your experience. To put it in a similar way, to go back to 1980 Flash Gordon, when Dr. Zarkov, they put him in that kind of mind melting machine. What are they doing? They're removing all his experiences, and they show that TV monitor kind of thing, and they're watching his memories play back all the stuff until he's a baby and being born, and basically that's kind of wiping his mind, right? You're wiping it, and you can look at that and saying that what they're doing, or what they're trying to do, is drain his experiences, which is literally his experience points. Okay. But in other ways, it can not necessarily work. Now, in a gold for XP situation, this works in a similar way, in that if you haven't there's that moment, and this also depends on the game. It can have this same quality in which, depending on how you work the system, if you need to get your gold, or your gold that you have gotten from whatever dungeon you're in, when does that convert to XP? Because before it converts to XP, it is subject to these same things where someone could come along and steal it, or a monster confronts you, a dragon, on your way to, you're in the dungeon, you got all this loot, you loaded your wagons, you're heading back to town, and oh, look at that random wilderness encounter. Oh, it's a red dragon that wants half your gold. Do you give it or not? And well, you give it, but then you get back to gold, and you get that to town rather, and you've lost half your gold. And that gold has not converted XP yet, and so you've lost half your XP, right? It can work like that. Oftentimes, I don't know if it really depends on the game. I always like to play it that you have to get it back to town. You have to get it back to that safe spot, and then you kind of convert it. Some people play you have to spend it to convert it, but I think other people play it. You get the gold at the end of the session, whatever it is, and you write it down, and it converts. Okay. But with this, kind of like gold is the thing, because candy is a physical thing, things in the world can interact with it. And it's a little bit gamey. And at one point I think we got attacked by rats, and they ate some of our candy. That kind of makes sense. Another time, I think some kids threw eggs at us, and the eggs, we had to make a save, and I missed my save, and the eggs got into my candy and ruined some of the candy. Now, you could argue about, well, if I have a Snickers bar and it gets dipped in some egg, does it ruin the Snickers bar? It's like, okay, but you're rolling with it, right? But it kind of makes sense. It's a perishable item, just like in gold. In a sense, it's an item that you can lose or spend or have to give away or pay, and so you can lose it. So you can have this fun thing of, oh, we're getting this, and I think it kind of. Obviously it helps that we're playing sort of a whimsical, it's dark, but still whimsical sort of game. So, okay, we got candy, in the ups and downs of, if you're lucky enough to make some saves, so you end up with 100 more candy than the rest of us, hey, fair game to you. Or, you're lucky or unlucky, whatever, but the candy comes, candy goes, and nobody feels particularly angered or frustrated because they lost them, which I think is interesting. And I imagine feeling the same way if I lost some gold. If I'm in a dungeon delve and we had a bunch of gold, but then some orcs held us up and somehow, I don't know, got us to then pay them some gold, I would be annoyed, but not annoyed in I hate this game, I want to quit kind of thing, but annoyed like, I'm going to get those, I'm going to pay back those orcs and get my gold back kind of thing. Which I think is what you want. And we ended up doing that too, where the kids who threw eggs on us, we got a revenge. We found them in their hideout and surprised them. And that's why I cast my sand trap spell. And so we got our gold back and then some, our candy. and then did some stuff. But it was a really fun little hex crawl through the town, trick or treating. There's definitely some stuff, and I had to bail out maybe, I don't know, 45 minutes before the end, so I don't know exactly how it all finished out. But I would say, and I don't know if this is made. Oh, it says it's made to be used with the prole, or is that pickle? I can't. Where's my glasses? Oh, it is prole. Meant to be used with the prole analog adventure game from Highland Paranormal Society, which I don't know what that is, but it seemed to convert pretty easily to liminal horror, which essentially is Knave. I don't know all the different, or not, sorry, not Knave. It's Cairn with some stuff added on. I don't know all the ins and outs of what liminal horror added to it. I think it played really well. The GM did a great job running things to where I had the HTML version of the rules open, but I only had to reference it when I was just creating my characters to check a couple of things. She also had a really great spreadsheet version of the character sheet, so you could really do a lot of, it was just really kind of well automated in a way where you didn't have to check a bunch of things, and actually playing it, making some saves, roll under kind of things for stats. It played really well. It was a lot of fun, and I can check off liminal horror as another system I got to play through. I think if you're looking for something kind of lightweight to run, kind of Halloween-ish, I definitely would say this Pilgrims of the Nighted Path was fun. Maybe some of the themes are darker. I mean, just in terms of if you're playing as middle, I mean, like there is a little bit of disconnect, I think, between what we were doing and like stuff we were like some guys like, hey, do you want a switchblade? Like, I'm 12. Like, yes, I do want the shit switchblade, but also I'm 12, or the other one's like, I'm going to take these drugs so I can see things no one else can see. It's like, you're 11. Like, what are you doing here? Right. But that's more just, it was fun. It was a good time. So that was fun. That was my Thursday. Okay. So let's see. I guess we're done with these, and I'll try to drop links in here because I do think it's worthwhile. Nice map. I wish I could click on it, but it doesn't open in a big window. And she was updating us, so she had everything as being player facing, which to me makes, in this context, I mean, look, I'm not against player face stuff, whatever, but it makes sense in this context because we're all from the town. We know the town. So there's none of this stuff is particularly hidden information. I don't think it's all kind of, so we got to kind of see it. And we were playing on Discord, and I think she said she had a spreadsheet that just had this map on it where she could move our little counter piece on her spreadsheet. There's probably a way to do it on, I don't know if that I still have to mess around with the whiteboarding stuff on Discord. Maybe that would work for that, but it worked. We didn't really often need to check. Only a couple times we kind of want to know, like, were we here or were we here? It didn't really matter so much. It was fun. And the hex is, I think, in a good way. I think, she was utilizing and I don't know what the rules are in the game for utilizing the hex map, but we weren't spending tons of time in kind of empty space. I mean, she was rolling for encounter stuff along the way, but felt like we were zipping along the map, which is good because we're only playing for maybe 3 hours or so, and like me even a little bit less. So, the less downtime, I think, player kind of downtime, the better. That was that. Okay, so that was all that. So that was a lot of fun. Fun to play, fun to be a part of, fun to discover new things. Now we can go on to the OSR subreddit and see what's going on. Let me take a sip of, this is watered down Jamaica for the working man. Is there a Moldvay Cook errata doc anywhere? I don't even know what that would be. There probably is something. I mean, it's called Beck Me, which is kind of not really. Glass Cannon playing Shadow Dark grade. Ooh, a Castle Mimic. All right. Okay, review some pictures. Blog roll. Does the blog roll have anything in it? All right, this might be good. We'll open some of these. How to make different worlds feel coherent. Sounds good. Okay. We'll see where we are. We'll see what we get with all of these. We'll start off with Methods at Madness. I will. Oh. Oh ho. Oh, let's see. Oh, hey, Croco. Let's see. Brian says, I ran a game last weekend in a Google meeting, shared their iPad running Procreate so they could sketch on the fly, had the players describe their PCs, and drew their little portrait tokens on the fly. Oh, that's really cool. Very, very cool. All right, so let me post the link to this. This is called How Minimalist Can D&D Characters Be? D&D Characters Be. Whoops. Be. Okay, that is in the chat. Okay. This is posted today. How minimalist can D&D characters be? As I've said before, this is the amount of information I like D&D characters have, and that would have to be enough in actual play for some like 80% of the roles to minimize the time spent doing math and checking the book. All right, and this sure is, I'm not sure if are we supposed to? This is kind of a blurry picture. I don't know if we're, can I zoom in a little bit? Oh, we're already at one, already kind of zoomed in. I wish they picked a little bit of a better picture. Let me see if I can. Okay, so this character sheet, I guess my glasses help a little bit. Okay, so what they're talking about here is these pre-roll characters. This is from AD&D. Oh, I guess these are for some toy pictures. Cargo says, I guess level's enough if you want to go minimalist. It really depends on the system, right? I can run my game with just that. If I know your class and I know your level, that tells me basically everything I need to know. And assuming you don't have any special equipment, like, yeah, I don't need anything else. Everything, that's all good. I think the key thing I think that they're looking at is they want to be able to cover basically 80% of the roles. So they want to have enough that only 20% of the time are you going to want to need to look at to reference something. So if you're looking at information in your character sheet, what are you going to be using? You only want that kind of 20% that you don't, that the stuff you only look at 20% or less of the time to be omitted from the sheet. So you probably, in a D&D type game, you want more than that. So you probably want your saving throws. You'd want your attack matrix or attack, bonuses, things like that. Probably something for spells if you're a wizard or cleric, your thief skills. So here we've got this screenshot's got a paladin, it's got their level, it's got their attributes, their armor class, their hit points, their dagger, their weapons and armor. And then I guess there's and there's another thing. So I guess maybe they're looking at this as saying this is kind of their minimum. Though for the cleric and, the wizards got their spell book with their spells on it. The cleric doesn't. Not sure why, because especially with 7th level, they got a boatload of spells too. Hey, Bruce. Bruce says any version of D&D should not really be minimalist. He's talking relatively speaking, right? What is the most minimalist being the most minimal, not minimal, and it's not on an absolute scale. So, minimal for D&D will be different than minimal for GURPS, which will be different than minimal for Munchkin, or I know Munchkin's not really, is there a Munchkin RPG? I don't know. You get the idea. So yeah, minimalist for D&D. All right, so they seem to like this, what they have for these pre-roll characters. Nice, huh? Class, level, abilities, a couple of magic items for spells, and you're good to go. Most PCs have a little more than a dozen pieces of information: name, alignment, level, class, 6 abilities, AC, HP, weapons, and armor, plus spells for some. Realistically, however, even the lightest version of D&D need more information than that. For example, can you recall each saving throw from memory? Unlikely, but this is easily solved by reducing all of them to a single saving throw. Say roll 1d20 plus level, target 20 or 16, etc. Bruce asks, are we talking about I want PC sheets to be fitting on an index card or don't want a 4-page character sheet? Well, that's a good question, Bruce. I'm not sure. We'll have to find out. I kind of like on the saving throw element they're talking about. I like the different saving throws. I do. It adds another way of just individual classes having their strengths and weaknesses. Whether you want to say warriors are better at anti-spell because they're kind of anti-spell, or whether you want to say that wizards are anti-spell. I just like having these different things you could do, and I'm sure you could structure it in a different way. by saying there's one saving throw, but wizards get a bonus towards this and warriors get a bonus towards that. It's probably another way to do the same thing. But I don't know. Maybe I'm just, that's probably where I will fully admit that maybe that's my rose-colored glasses of the past come in. Bruce says, why not just say this is my version of a TTRPG? That way you can say, I want a game that's pretty math-light. Well, I mean, you can, right? But we all play the games. I mean, look, D&D has a long history of people coming in and formatting and doing things to suit their tables. A lot of us, myself included, if you've been following any of my stuff, have our heartbreakers and our games that we make. But, these games, I think part of the fun of playing these games is hacking them and doing what we will with them. Though this is not even really a hack. I guess it wasn't a hack until we changed the saving throw, which then would make it a hack. But anyway, okay. So now the next part. So saving throws. Okay, that's one thing. Now, what about THAC0? Same thing. I'm happy with leaving the attack bonus equal to level for fighters, half level for everyone else, which is a huge simplification for D&D. But that's 2 extra bits of information, and usually you need ranged and melee values, which rely on more information than just levels. So you need to add a strength modifier. Well, actually, you don't necessarily. I mean, I guess if you're making changes, you're making changes. Bruce says the game is meant to be kit bashed per Gary. Yes. Well, per Gary of the 70s. Yes. 70s Gary. Yes. 80s Gary. Pre-AD, and let's just say it's pre-AD&D Gary, absolutely. Post-AD&D or AD&D Gary, not so much. Okay, and ability scores. You have the 6 of them, but you need modifiers. You could commit the modifiers to memory. That's actually not all that tough. But you use them often enough that it is easier if you write them down, which is also true. Well, maybe not all of them, since you already have AC, HP, and languages. You can ignore Dex, Con, and Int modifiers most of the time, which is by itself an interesting idea. Why keep these modifiers in the character sheet? But you need charisma mods for reaction, at least in theory, and wisdom for saves. Strength modifiers are needed for attack and damage, and in AD&D, this can mean 2 additional numbers. Notice these stats lack weapon damage too, something you'll use all the time. Notice that at the very least, we could ignore all +0 modifiers. We'd only need to add 2 or 3 digits, not 6 new ones. We do not have much equipment here either. It is likely that a real PC has at least half a dozen items or more, not only weapons and armor. I'm counting sword +2 as a single piece of information, not 2. On a side note, maybe in a low magic D&D setting, sword +1 could be a personal trait for a warrior instead of a magic weapon. This could incorporate your strength bonus and make weapon specialization a lot easier. He's got weapon specialization in quotes, just for the record. So maybe we'd have a minimum of 30 pieces of information for each PC, but there's more. Spellcasters have spells, which is straightforward enough, if not for the fact that they could, in theory, pick new ones every day, and clerics have access to their whole list. Notice that the cleric here has no spells memorized. Thieves have skills, again, a bit hard to memorize, but can be easily replaced by rolling 1d20 and adding level. Once you get some customization, more information is needed. Fighters have their weapon specializations and extra attacks, and they need this stuff. And that is assuming each PC can only have one class. In the end, we could have more than 100 pieces of information. Look at this AD&D sheet. And there we see all this stuff. Croco says, need Benbar's lift gate chances as well. Yes, if you're right. And system's going to matter. Right? And there's a lot of this that kind of gets into, well, how much do you want to simplify AD&D? It's kind of like, and of course, you could also argue at that point, why not just play basic BX D&D or BECME or whatever, because that is already taking a more simplified version. It wasn't made that way, that came out kind of somewhat almost contemporaneously, though not exactly, but, or Holmes or something that's already kind of simplified versus AD&D that is adding all this complexity. Well, that's a separate question. Okay, so they show the AD&D sheet. Of course, much of it is redundant or rarely used, but it still muddles the sheet. Sigh. In the end, this post ended up doing the opposite of what I intended when I wrote the title. The answer, I think, is that D&D characters could be a lot more minimalist than they are, but it is not an easy task. We could start by cutting all ability scores in half, only one number, no modifier, reducing all saves to a single save, and streamlining all skills. But I've been to this road before. There's no end to this other than ending with something that doesn't resemble D&D anymore. Maybe this much complexity is fine if I let the players handle it. I guess I have no easy answers today. Well, this is an interesting line, I guess. If I let the players handle it. I mean, don't you? I've never had a GM who was in charge of my character sheet. I think that's maybe in the post digital game age, maybe that was a thing where your GMs might handle your character sheets. And I know in the game I play in Daniel's game, we have one player that for sure that Daniel kind of takes care of their sheet. But I think it's a special case where she's just not really knowledgeable in the mechanics. And I think it's just to make things easier for everybody. But it's also something where the stuff that they're up, it's like Daniel will update it on their level or something. It's not something that's happening all the time. Krakow says, I don't think you really need a sheet. A piece of paper is enough. Yeah, I mean, I think the sheets are nice because what's nice about the sheets. So I'll say this: I think not that you need a character sheet, but I like character sheets because they organize it and they do kind of help you make sure the character sheet should be there to make sure that everything that you need is there and it's in the right spot and can even help with the calculations or kind of making sure. So that's why I think that the character, and it's also so you as a teacher, if you're a referee and you're teaching the game, and someone's like, I don't know where this thing is, you can help them find it. Or if it's just on someone's page and they're just kind of organized it. However, it's kind of all over the place. Now, in a game that has very simple characters or not a lot going on, then it doesn't really matter because there's not that much information. But if you're following all this stuff with like the ADD sheet, and yeah, you could write it all without that, but actually having the organizational stuff is kind of nice. All right, Bruce says they handle the sheets for players because they're running a hybrid system with explanations for the special abilities. That makes sense. I mean, yeah, if you're running your own kind of homebrew sort of game has a lot of heavy lifting on you, but if I'm running a kind of a D&D type game, I'm letting the players, that's kind of their responsibilities. But maybe that's changing. And definitely, I think if you're running people through systems and over that they're not super familiar with or has a lot of stuff that's kind of black box in your brain, but they don't have access to, yeah, it makes sense. Okay. But the other part is like, and Bruce replying to Kraga says they recommend just to buy a college rule notebook. I mean, yeah, you don't need to have somebody to go design character sheets. I mean, I've done it for my game just because I thought it was kind of fun to try. But I'm not saying that you need them, but I do think they're handy. Although, and they can give you some. I like the information. Like I said, the informational design you can help kind of guide that with the character sheet, but you certainly don't need them. All right. Well, unfortunately, the answer to how minimalist can D&D characters be, the answer is I don't know. Nobody knows. I don't mind some of the simplifications. There's probably something because I think when you get to the end of a lot of what they were talking about with their simplifications, you're kind of getting to a kind of a really just a retro clone kind of hack of AD&D where you kind of grind down all that stuff. Or really, you might say it's really just BX with the serial numbers ground off, except for because isn't that like which one of it does? Is it Swords and Wizardry? One of the retro clones of BX does do that where they take away the individual saves and just have one save. Other games have done kind of doing that, but they don't think they start with AD&D so much. They start with one of those other something like BX because it's already pretty. I mean, it has all the things that AD&D has in a broad brush. Like it has saving throws, it has the attack matrix, and but it's not quite as not in all the percentages, and it's not as crunchy as AD&D. All right, so that was that one. We're off to the Seed of Worlds, which I will put the link in here too, in case anyone wants to follow from home. Let's see. Okay, yeah, I use basically a digital kind of notebook for my notes and stuff for the game, for the OD&D chainmail game that I play in. And that's a lot of fun. And also I kind of like doodle in there too. And I have my character and that game, my character is just on one of the first pages. I just grabbed everything, kind of wrote it in there. But for my OD&D character, there's so little information I need to track that I could easily fit it on a note card if I had to. Favorite thing, Bruce says their favorite thing with BX is the weapon mastery chart. Imported in their game makes it more feasible as time goes on because there's time requirements people to train with weapon. I think that's actually I think BECME might have the weapon mastery chart, not BX. BX probably would have had that if it ended up. So I think that might be is it in the companion? I can't remember which book it's in. or the rules cyclopedia potentially. Yeah, Jeff, that's BECME, Bruce. BX technically is separate from BECME. FYI, it's the rules cyclopedia is based on BECME. BECME was kind of a redo of BX, with what's his name? So BX was Moldve. BECME is Menser. So they're slightly different. BECME just kind of expands. BX should have been, I think the original plans were for BX to be BECME, but it just didn't work out. And so they basically rebooted BECME from BX. And one of the things that notoriously got goofed up was the thieves skill progression did not get extended correctly, so that in BX you have the thieves progression, which basically is from levels 1 to I guess 14 is maybe where it stops. But in BECME, unfortunately, that got, because BECME's level limit I think is 36, so it got stretched out over that, which just made the thief situation much worse. Okay. On to blog number 2, setting up coherent other worlds for scale and planet campaign. All right. In my campaign, okay, I say this is following a prompt from the RPG blog Carnival, portraying other worlds, considering how to make worlds that are different but feel coherent within the same campaign. What are the dials you twiddle and what stays the same? This is an idea I am road testing with my 2D20 Lizard Kings campaign. The core theme of it all is that the Scaly folk are in a post-imperial expansion, but have just retrenched, not gone away. There are tons of things littered around from different eras of their imperium, representing different ideas they had, including their push to their nearby worlds. This is a live, relevant question because I am returning to Chorus, the world of the Lizard Kings, where one of the core setting ideas was the concept of near Mars and far Venus, a thinly atmosphered world nearer the sun and a thickly atmosphered one further out would cancel out to be roughly habitable, making 3 worlds in the system operating on a John Carter-esque sword and planet paradigm. Interplanetary escapades were always intended as part of the mix, but now I have the wisdom to front-load the good stuff, and thus I ought to be figuring out that world-striding aspect of things. It may be smudged and barely legible, but those notes read near Mars, ancient civilizations, canals, and distant Venus, jungle world with sour cavalry, or Saur cavalry, I guess Saurian. And then crocodile worshippers in brackets. And I have some more notes that tag distant Venus with giants and dinosaurs, near Mars with dunesque deserts, gnolls, crystal forging, miners, and alchemists with a great tree. So how to make these 3 worlds, tentatively named Nemas, Chorus, and Favens, feel coherent yet different. I've had some thoughts before on distinguishing mirror worlds with house rules, and modified rules for those worlds feel like a good idea, but one tool in the box feel like a good idea, but it does not go far enough. Mirror worlds should be very similar with a twist. These other worlds should feel distinctly different with a shared milieu. I want the still here motifs of the lizard folk across all worlds. Lizardy deep time nonsense, a multiplicity of heat, cults, nature bending, and the same general pantheon. Excuse me. Let's see. Croco says, the BECME weapon mastery system has the chainmail superhero morale affecting thing in it. Pretty neat. Cool. Traffic between them has been complex but achievable for a good long period of time. So like very distant continents, semi-legendary lands that few have actually been to and many disbelieve exist. Common across them all will be relics and ruins of the, quote, high tide, unquote, of the Lizard Imperium. Portals within these ruins, in those ruins, will be the easiest means for the unofficial travel of adventures. These are starting to sound like slee stacks, which is not a bad thing. Rapidly filling out worlds with whole other worlds to play with. I think batching some off-the-shelf ideas by theme might be good to start. Nemes, all the desert tropes, harsh, high-entropy system of sandstorms burying and covering the past. Al-Qadim, John Carter, ultraviolet grasslands, painted wastelands, Nagash, type undead, scorn of iron kingdoms. Excuse me. Favens, Giants and bigger dinosaurs, stranger jungles, fungal seas and swamps, highly contested. Previous inhabitants have not gone quietly. Lustria, Thousand Islands, Yunsuin, Monsoon, or Moonsoon. The core world already has deep, hot jungles and the abyssal dry sea. Some dinosaurs already live there. Perhaps dinosaurs are an invasive clade here that has thrived. Binding worlds together. To put all this together, I need some coherent overlays to allow them to form a connected scale and planet setting. Thematically, this is how an empire falls apart in 3 bits. On Nemesis, the fading remnants of the old ways persist. I'm just kind of summarizing some of this. I kind of want to get to the general advice, but this seems very setting specific. On Chorus, the Rump Empire continues, and on Favens or Favens, invigorated but chaotic. Okay, the driver for all lives focus the heat. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I guess I like it's cool. Like, sorry, I let this kind of slide on. It is a fun read, but it really is more about the setting stuff as opposed to kind of. I guess there's a little bit of general advice. I think I think you want to keep if you're in the same setting, kind of same campaign, but you want to have the different worlds. Then I think you want to decide, which I think he's done a good job of showing, or they've done a good job of showing. Though just the specifics of their setting doesn't necessarily meaningful to us as readers. Is to find that stuff that find these almost tentpole features that you want to have differentiated. So he's got his Venus, his Mars, whatever. So you have Earth-like, right, and one that's kind of dry desert thing, and another one that's kind of lush. And so you want to figure out, okay, these are the things I want to be different. These are the things that make it the same, because you do want to have some stuff that I mean, and not that you have to really, because lots of Gonzo things will just go. Like in, I guess I don't know if this has ever happened before. I'm going to pull out 1980 Flash Gordon for a second time and say, look, when he's going to different worlds, you have the Hawkmen. It's just kind of in some like cloud city out there. You have Barrens people who live in the weird swamp thing for a reason. And clearly there are other worlds that seem to just be, those singular, like they do in a lot of particularly older sci-fi, is a world that's just a singular biome or location that's just expanded to be a planet. But that's just kind of it. But coming up with, well, what do they all have in common versus what are they all separated? Then you want to make sure they kind of mesh together, so it doesn't feel like you're playing a different game. I thought actually I was going to get more into like literal, are there going to be different mechanics in these different worlds? Because at this point it seems all mostly just kind of setting stuff, which is cool, but maybe that's less of the problem than if you wanted to have things work differently. Like, what if you wanted to have gravity or some other kind of central thing be slightly different on these planets? Like in John Carter, he goes to Mars and suddenly he can do all this kind of superheroic. He's like a little Hulk, mini Hulk up there on Mars, but obviously if he's back on Earth, he's a normal person kind of thing. But it is what it is. Let's see. Bruce says, I'm not trying to sell people on any system, but I really like the system in the Rules Compendium, or Rules Cyclopedia, I should say. My friends enjoy it enough. They've been in that game for over 30 sessions. Often sessions last longer than 6 hours. I mean, there's nothing wrong with the Rules Cyclopedia. It is nice. It is different. It is. I guess and I guess I was being a little bit pedantic, but there are some meaningful differences between BX and BECME, and there's even some meaningful differences between BECME and the Rules Cyclopedia. The Rules Cyclopedia omits some things. I think even in the companion book, there are some things that are omitted that are in that book that are omitted in the Rules Cyclopedia. So they're not mirror. They're very close to each other, and there's not a lot of differences between them, but some of the differences are not insignificant. And just as an example, for the thieves part, if you play a BECME thief just kind of as written there, you might notice if you look at the BX thief that their progression is twice as fast because BECME stretched it out. I think that was a mistake or something they forgot to fix. I don't know, but I know it's a known goof. I think Frank Menser's on the record multiple times of saying that, like, that was not our best day, either not fixing it or not anticipating it or whatever is a bad thing. And then even you can find in back of BX and back of the extra book, they talk about, hey, in the next book, you're going to get some cool thieves. You're going to get some really cool stuff that they never really get. I don't think I don't think that part didn't come through. Because I think there's some stuff about, like thieves will get some spells and stuff and their own like illusion capabilities. And I don't think the BECME thieves ever paid off that part of it either. But there's absolutely good stuff. And I always think if you're playing these old school kind of D&D type games, I think other than the core books for whatever version you're doing, I think the Rule Cyclopedia is a good one because it's just having everything in one volume as opposed to being all split up in the Beckme books. It's just easier to look things up, even if you do miss a few things here and there. I think AD&D, the Dungeon Master's Guide in particular, but I think probably the Player's Handbook too, are really just handy because there's just lots of stuff in there that you may not find elsewhere. You might always, and you don't always. The AD&D way of doing things is not always one that I love. Like when you're doing like adding up all the percentage points to roll D100, but you can use it, or you can just make your own table from that if you want to say like, you know, I don't the getting that 1% granularity thing that AD&D is getting to is maybe I don't need that, but I can take that same kind of chart and maybe I can do it as a D20 or do it as a D6 or some other way. Let's see what's going on in the chat. Bruce says, I don't use all the Rule Cyclopedia Beckme for their system. Theirs is close to a D100 version of Pathfinder First Edition, but a lot of things that are more represent a game that doesn't clone 3X. I don't let people, quote unquote, level up just in the middle of anywhere. Often they'll have to find time off or spend days crafting. In the process, they'll have their hit points and saving throws improve. Maybe a week later, they'll be doing some chores and they'll have a skill rank to assign. And a week after that, they have feat choices, maybe rogue options, maybe barbarian rage powers to pick around. I mean, it sounds cool. I do like training. I just as a thing, I like things that kind of slow the game down a little bit and force players to make choices because there's some interesting tensions in there when you have clocks moving and I like, oh gosh, this thing is happening. Do we spend time doing A, B, or C? And one of those things is training. Or you want to go visit something. Those kind of, and that's why I really just don't like downtime. I wish I got to come up with another works. I just don't like downtime. It makes it seem like it's just like, oh, it's like when you're not doing anything, and really it's just longer term. I don't even know what to call it. Like more like development, not a sabbatical. I don't know. I don't know what to call it. I've messed around calling it like logistics kind of thing, which probably doesn't work either. I don't know, but this idea of okay, we have a month. We have stuff we want to do, longer term stuff, but we can't do everything in that month. If the bad guy's showing up with his armada at the end of the month, we think, then maybe we can't do everything. We can only do 2 out of the 3 things we want to. Well, if I want to go over here and talk to that sage or do something with this connection I have, well, I can't also then go train. Or I can do those 2 things, but then there's a third thing and I can't do that. I think those choices are really, really good. And then you get to move your calendars. You really have one of the things I think that's happened, and it's not new, but I think it's happened more, is it seems like these games are moving at the speed of light, where just people are just across the map because there's nothing to keep them in a place for more than we're out of the dungeon, we're on to the next thing. Da, 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 da. Well, having them do these things help them spend time in places which then help things just marinate. Let's let your world develop. Let everything just kind of bake a little bit more than they get to often. Marco says preparation time, maybe. I don't preparation H. Maybe. Like I said, I'm not sure. I just downtime just strikes me because it feels like it's like throwaway time. Like, oh, downtime. It's like I don't know. Because I'd like that stuff to feel more like it's part of the main game. And I think when you say downtime, it's almost like this is stuff we're doing where we're not really playing. Which I suppose you can handle like the way there's nothing wrong with handling it like that, but I kind of feel like if we want to have it, I don't think it helps to give something a term that makes it seem like it's kind of like the boring time in between the fun stuff. It's like, no, this stuff can be fun and interesting too. Maybe we just have to do a better job of making it interesting. Maybe there's just another word. Maybe some of that play is on, because they are long-term things. We're not playing every minute of it. So maybe something that has, I don't know. I just don't love downtime as a phrase for it. Bruce says that they think calling it downtime is great. Too many miserable adventure paths took place in a month, and at the start, Joe the Fighter was the first level in Scale Mail, and in 4 weeks was level 15. Yes, it's the fact that I just don't feel like it's necessarily. I mean, I guess I don't know. It is downtime in a sense. I can't argue with it. Yes, if your uptime is you're literally on the adventure thing and you're kind of hanging out in town, you are definitely down. It is downtime, but I don't know. I would just like something else that makes it a little bit. It makes it a little bit more interesting. Is not the word. It's just a little bit. It promotes a little bit more like, hey, this isn't a throwaway kind of thing. But I gotta workshop it. Hey, Dungeon Master Masterclass says that motivating PCs to not adventure at maximum speed is a shortcoming. I mean, I think it's a shortcoming for a lot of us. I mean, people want to do the fun things they think are fun, but I think what happens though is, or what you would like to happen, is that there's enough. Sometimes I guess I don't have a better word, so I go downtime. The downtime stuff, I think when you start to build in more of these type of situations, there's a payoff for the players. So let me give an example from the game I play in, not that I run. In Daniel's game, hey, Meyer Trumpet, thanks so much. In Daniel's game, if you're going to learn a spell, or research a spell, right? Researching a spell takes time. Our group has gotten some of these books from a library, and these books have some really interesting information in them, but we need time to decipher them. And it's information that we want, information that we need to do things we want to do, but we need to decipher them, and that takes time. The wizards are working on some spells. I think they're trying to make, I think one of the things they're working on over time is like a firebolt type spell. So that's something they've been working on. That also takes time. And you can chunk out the time. It doesn't have to be an all or nothing spend, but ultimately you need to spend time doing it. If I want to go train, that takes some time. So all these things are going, we're looking at the challenges that we have coming up, things that we want to do as players and our characters want to do. And we have these almost soft barriers that, like, hey, man, we could do it without, we can proceed without knowing what the books mean, without the wizards having their spell, without me leveling up. But man, wouldn't it be nice? Might think things easier if we did. And so it's like, well, okay, we've done this, that, the other, and now we find that there's time. And I think for his part, Daniel does a good job of spacing things out so that events aren't all on top of each other. When I first joined his game, they were at the tail end of fighting these cultists who were sacrificing people, but those sacrifices happened basically at the end of every month, like on like every full moon, they're doing some sacrifice ritual, which was really bad, of course. But it also meant that in between full moons, you had time. Hey, thanks so much. Thanks so much, Bruce. You have, in between those months, in between those full moons, you have like 28 days to do things, which means that you've got time, right? So we could say, we just hit it then. All right, we know we've got a month till it's going to happen again. So what do we want to do during that month? Okay, I want to research this. I want to do this thing. I want to whatever. Like, I want to work on my stronghold. I want to level up. I want to learn the spell. We need to get these books deciphered or read or whatever. So you have that. So I think as a GM, one thing you can do to foster that is twofold. One, spread your things out. Slow it down. Okay, the guy's not coming in a day. He's coming in a month. And then add those day costs. Oh, you want to do this thing? Well, you got to go to the Sage. Well, it's going to take you a couple days to travel to the Sage. Then you got to the Sage is going to take the Sage a week or 2 weeks to do it, and then so all this stuff takes longer time, and so then they'll be thinking like, "Ooh, we want to do this stuff, but it takes time, it takes time," and so then you just start calculating it out, and you have enough of those. And again, if there are enough stuff that players want to do, this stuff doesn't work if nobody wants to do them. Ultimately, the players got to be like, "Yeah, we want." I mean, our game, like, it's very player driven, but we want to. Yeah, we have things we want to do, so we figure out how we need to do them. And there are times where we delay. Oh, the wizards, for their part, have been wanting to train or to reach some of these spells forever, but we felt too under the gun. We haven't had time. But then this moment will come where it's like, okay, I think we got time now. Or if we don't really have it, it's like we need it. And so we do. So you kind of find that, you kind of reach that sort of balance where you can add that stuff in. Dungeon Master Masterclass says, you're right, I think I'm too lenient in letting PCs do things like translating the mysterious book around the campfire while adventuring. I mean, there's certainly some stuff you can do, but I think there's other things that it's just, like for us, it's just, we're not finding one book in the library. Like this library store I'm talking about, I think we had something like 20 or 30 books. So this isn't about having one book that we're kind of like, ooh, looking at, we got these tomes. And we have a whole wheelbarrow full of tomes, and we don't know where the right information is. So part of it is just the scale. If we had one book and we were just kind of looking at it, then maybe I don't know how Daniel would run it, but maybe you might say, okay, sure. But even in the campfire aspect, well, how much can you read of this book in the hour or 2 hours when you're not asleep and you're not on watch? It's just it's a lot. And you're around a campfire, you don't have any tools. Is it even your language? Is it an antiquated version of your language? Imagine if you were trying to read an original, an hour in our time. To put it kind of in perspective, imagine you're trying to read the original Beowulf manuscript. You have a complete copy of the Beowulf manuscript, but it's in Old English and we're in modern English, and you can kind of get it. Some of the words are similar, but some of them are not. The spellings are very different. Even the letters can be different. Technically, it's the same language. I mean, well, they're related anyway, right? But it's not really the same, but that's like a lot of stuff we deal with in fantasy games and stuff that's at least, it's 1,000 years old. It's like, okay, well, now you take that, now you're going to do it on a flickering campfire. Where are you keeping your notes? What are you writing things down? How are you doing that? Like, that's something where you go, no, you got to be in a study. You got to be in a library. You got to be able to pull other references off the shelf and look it up. Like, you got to find that Old English to English dictionary, or maybe even just an Old English to Middle English dictionary, which gets you closer to modern English, so you can do that. You're definitely going to want to write things down so you don't get jumbled up. So you just kind of, we don't really go over all those details in the game, but we just watch out to, like, someone's going to have to study that. Or it's just like, you're going to need a guy. Like, we are adventurers. We are not Old English scholars. We're not philologists. We're not J.R.R. Tolkien. We're not whoever else you want to throw in the mix that can do that. So we need to find that guy and employ him in the town to do that thing. And we don't have to be doing downtime. We can give and say, okay, we're going to go adventuring for 3 weeks. But during that 3 weeks, you're doing whatever, right? Let's see. What else is going on here? Croco says, I forget exactly how Call of Cthulhu does it, but maybe the research stuff could be taken from that. I mean, I don't think you really need a hard and fast system. I mean, if you want to, you could. So if I was running this in my home game, right, in Troop, how would I do it? Well, maybe I would say, okay, this manuscript, let's say it's got a difficulty rating of 5. Now, whoever's doing it is going to be rolling some dice every week, and I'll just say, each chapter takes a week or whatever, and so we do that. And so you just roll, you make rolls, and you make progress. Bang it! It could be really easy. You could do it with dice. You could do it with percentile. Maybe you say, hey, look, 100% of this book, and every week you get to roll some percentile, and then that's how much you've decoded. If you roll a high number, I guess it means that either with lots of pictures or something, or you just got on a roll, or maybe you rolled low number. Maybe you don't even roll a D100. You say, you know what? You could roll a D10 for every week that you're studying this book. And each time you add up to it. And when you get to 100%, you will have mastered the book. I don't know if I need a whole system drawn out for it, but you could. Or you could just do like roll under your intelligence. And whatever the difference is how much progress you make. And really the big thing is if you want to show progress. But you could just say, roll a D, this is how many weeks it will take you to study this book. Roll a D4. I rolled 1. All right, you're done in a week. Or someone else, they rolled D4 out. Now it's done in 2 weeks. I mean, you can. I don't know that you need something for it. If you want to get in the weeds, maybe you can go with some kind of skill system. But like we're playing OD&D or playing BX, you don't really have a skill for research. I think AD&D does have sages stuff, so you can look up for AD&D if you want to look up a sage. If you want it to if you want the players to have to take it to a third party, then I think AD&D's got you covered with a sage system. I don't know if it gives all the nitty gritty, but I mean, if there's any book that I would think in the kind of D&D family that would give you the nitty gritty on that, it would be the AD&D Dungeon Master's Guide. So you never know. Meyer Trauma says that Beowulf has survived in only one manuscript. There was a strong chance of us losing it altogether. Yeah, and that transcript's not complete either. And I know there are spots where they kind of guess at the words that were supposed to be there. I've been doing a lot of Old Englishy stuff lately. Not that I'm an expert or anything. In fact, I shared this. I don't know where I shared this, but I got this book recently, Daor Horde, all about an Old English bestiary. It's been really cool. today, not today, but maybe I'd say yesterday I learned, or the day before, about the origins of the word cobwebs, which is kind of cool. Because basically, which actually there's a D&D tie-in. I don't remember what the creature looks like, an ettercap. So an ettercap, though I think it might have been was called like an addercap, which basically means either a poison cup or a poison vessel, and that was a word used for spiders, and then that became or ettercop maybe, and that became just so then they would say for spiders you might just say cop, and so a spider web was a cobweb, which became cobweb. And so even though we don't think of, I think of cobwebs as specifically webs that there's no spider anymore. Like the spider weaved the web and they've gone away, and that's the cobweb. It's just kind of gone. It's just a web. I mean, I don't know if that's the technical definition, but I think it was kind of uninhabited webs. I think it was a cobweb, but the origins was specifically of a spider. It was just calling a spider web. I mean, as opposed to what other webs, I'm not sure, but spider webs. Oh, what's going on in the chat here? We got some stuff going on. Let's see. Gus says, I've always found giving players clues they can't use is effectively frustrating all around. Oh, hold on. I think I might need to go back. Let me go back. So Gus says, I would also want to balance the realism of the situation with the utility of the book being read for the adventure. I've always found that giving players clues they can't use effectively is frustrating all around. Well, I think there's probably a mindset thing here. If your players, and if your game is in the mode, and I think a lot of modern D&D is like this, where you have to be able to act on the thing right away, then that becomes a problem. But if you think about it in the older mode of playing, when things were going to be visited more than once, where you were not expected to figure out a whole dungeon in one delve and be done with it, but you were going to maybe be noodling around and, I'm here and I'm back, I'm here and I'm back. Then the idea that you might need to leave, because wasn't there even a thing, I think, with thieves, right? And I don't remember if it was when it stopped or what, but there was a thing where, like, if you failed a lock-picking check with a thief, you could try again next level. Okay. That only works because this idea that you might actually come back to that dungeon next level to work on it. It doesn't work if the idea of you being the next level and coming back to that dungeon is preposterous because you're on to the next 8 dungeons from there. Then that just seems like lunacy. Like, why would you be forcing me to go back to do that? Right. But if you think about it in the old Zelda games, for example, if you go back to the original Legend of Zelda, you might be in dungeon 1 and you might see the crack in the wall that you can only get through when you have the bombs that you don't get back in dungeon 5. But the game is assuming that you get the bombs in dungeon 5, and you're gonna remember, or you're gonna think about, where can I use those bombs? And remember, you can come back and use that bomb in the first thing. Now, yeah, you have to balance it. You have to think about it, but it's the mode of how players are considering the world. Is it just a single serving, like everything's just going to come in and be done, or is it there's going to be more reuse? And definitely in the game I'm playing in, there are places that we've gone, we've delved in a little bit, we had to leave, there are things we couldn't do, and now it's like, we got this thing now we can go back, or there was one place, I forget, where it was like there was giant ants were all over it, and we couldn't deal with the giant ants, so we got this thing that we absolutely needed, and then we got out. But then we got some other stuff. We're like, what we're going to do? We're going to go, we got a level, maybe got a level or two. We got some new stuff. And then we're like, okay, we're going back and we're kicking those giant ants out, and we want to get and then we did. We went back and we did it. Right. So it's a different way the world works. But I don't think it's something you can't get players in the mode of. But they have to there has to be rewards. There has to be real things. If it's just like, I did this thing, like, if you do all this puzzle and then you get, like in A Christmas Story, he's writing down the secret codes from Little Orphan Annie, and then he gets the decoder ring in the mail, and he's in the bathroom and he's decoding, and this is a really important message, and it's buy more Ovaltine. Well, yeah, that stinks. So you want to make the payoff be worth it, and it doesn't have to be just in like treasure, but it just has to be something where because the payoff for us isn't just that, we may have gained something. In fact, oftentimes we don't. Oftentimes, not like we walked away with a new shiny sword or something, but we got to do something that we wanted to do. We had a goal, and the payoff was us getting to accomplish that goal. but it's complicated because you got to get players to buy into having goals and really being, like what are your player goals? What are your character goals? Like, I really think the character goals are mostly a function of what your player goals are. I mean, my character goals are really not going to be very different from my player goals because, like, I'm playing in D&D. My character wants to open up his own coffee shop or something. It's like, I mean, maybe, but probably not. Because I don't want to run a coffee shop simulator. So it's probably not going to be my character goal. But in any case, you want to fulfill those goals. Let's see. What do we got here? What else is going on? So Croco asked Gus for an example, and Gus said, well, if you have a document with the clues for a dungeon puzzle or history, and you say only someone who can read Hobgoblin and no one in the party can, it's basically the same as not giving the clue. Well, see, I disagree with that, Gus, because you should always feel the opportunity to be like, well, maybe we know somebody in town who speaks Hobgoblin. I mean, that was kind of one of the original things was we don't have someone who can pick locks, but we can go to the town and pay a locksmith or a lockpicker or some guy to come and do that for us. Or we don't have this thing, go to the sage and get it. But the party has to know that stuff exists and they're out there, right? And then you as the referee have to implement them. But the idea is that it's okay to leave and come back. This is kind of like it's not dissimilar from hey, we can withdraw from this fight, we can retreat and then come back. If your party never feels like that they can retreat from a situation or regroup, get something else, and then come back, then yeah, that's a problem because everything's just this constant push forward. And if you're not pushing forward, then you're stuck. But that's not true in the case where the game really is inviting you. And if all the systems encourage you to be like, no, you can pull back. Oh, you reach a thing there and you can pull back because there might be a way around, or you might be able to talk to somebody. There might be something else going on. So I think just because nobody speaks Hobgoblin, I think that's, in a one shot, that might be an issue, right? If you're in the dungeon, it's a one shot. Like, we're not going to leave the dungeon in the one shot, go back to town and do all this stuff. But in a campaign, that becomes more of a thing, assuming the system stuff is kind of set up to make those things not only possible, but that they kind of reward that behavior. Because remember too, what if you got some loot from the goblins dungeon or whatever this dungeon is where you found this hobgoblin thing, and then you get it back to town, you could maybe level up, right? So you have reasons maybe to leave and then come back. In the games where you don't have those mechanisms, often there's no there's no advantage to leaving. But in a game where you might need to level up or you might need to heal up, because that's the other thing, right? If you're playing BX, healing by the book is slow. So what does that encourage you to do? It encourages you to get somewhere safe to heal up, which encourages you to get back to town. And you have to get back to town anyway. Then the people who are not injured can then spend time recruiting or getting a sage or doing these things because you're on the shelf. It's like, I got to heal for 5 days to get back my 5 hit points. Then, doing that. So that's another thing where kind of slowing the game down actually helps open up that stuff. Where if your party never needs to go back to town for any reason, food doesn't matter. They can heal on the spot, all this stuff, and that makes those things more frustrating because it feels more like you're putting an artificial break on their efforts, where that's not really what's going on, or ideally that's not what's going on. Bruce asks, what's the best database to use for writing spell books? Man, I have no idea. Excel maybe. I mean, some kind of relational database probably ultimately, but maybe just something in Excel or Google Sheets probably works. And then Gus says, I'm all for waiting on downtime to read through a complex set of clues, just not 6 sessions of downtime or a pass-fail roll. Well, I think the sessions part, it's really kind of up to the party. Like in the game I'm playing in, we're doing stuff. We could probably sit there and say, okay, wizards, or let's say the sage says they'll get back to us with this document in 3 weeks. If we just want to wait the 3 weeks, then it's not going to take 6 sessions. We'll just speed forward 3 weeks. But oftentimes there's other stuff we want to do. So we leave it with them and then we go do other stuff. And that other stuff might take us 6 sessions. And then at the end of that 6 sessions, we're like, oh, we got to go back to town X. And then why do we have to go back to town X again? Oh yeah, that guy was working on the Hobgoblin manuscript, so let's go back. So I think it's in my experience anyway, playing in these things, I'm not as a GM saying it's going to take 6 sessions. It's just that there's so much stuff going on, and you're rolling up random stuff, and the stuff's popping off that you're just going off doing stuff in the interim, and that ends up taking 6 sessions. So to me, it's not about session count. I would just use a calendar or whatever. It's going to take 3 weeks, and whatever you do in those 3 weeks, if it takes 5 minutes of table time, because everyone looks at each other and say, hey, should we just skip forward 3 weeks if nothing else happens? And the GM says, sure, let me just roll a couple of random things, see if anything happens in those 3 weeks. Otherwise, yeah, we're rolling. Okay, then you're done. And it's all happened within 5 minutes of a session. Or it could be, okay, it's going to take 3 weeks. Hey, I wanted to go to the Isle of Dread in the meantime, so let's just sail our ships over there and we'll muck around over there, and then we'll get this thing when we come back. Let's see. Croco says, I think for the most part, it should be on the players to utilize potential crews. So if no one can read Hobgoblin, they have to seek out someone who can if they want to know what's written. Okay, so Gus and Croco are kind of going back and forth with that. Yeah, I mean, you need to figure out the cadence. You got to find the cadence that's going to work for you. Like I said, I think it's not one thing right there. I think there's multiple things you kind of are gearing up. I think you want players that have goals. I've mentioned it. It's been kind of on the periphery of this discussion, but I think it's important because when your players have stuff to do, they'll come up with stuff to do. What I mean is that a better way of saying is when one door closes, other doors will open. And in our case, if we get to a point where like, okay, we cannot proceed further in this direction because of X, Y, or Z, then we as players and our characters are going, well, what can we do? Okay, so we need to wait to go through this door in this dungeon. We need to wait for the Hobgoblin dock. Okay, great. Well, we're not just going to wait. Like, okay, well, we're going to do that. Oh, yeah, there was also these pirates that we wanted to check out because these pirates attacked us last time we were sailing over the Isle of Dread. So let's go check on those pirates and kick their butts down a little bit. And, oh, yeah, I wanted to go over I need to go visit my mentor to get something. And, oh, didn't we have this part of a treasure map we wanted? Right, we got all these, what is it, coals in the fire, whatever. No, that's not the phrase. Irons, that we got all these irons in the fire. So, that Hobgoblin thing is cooled off a little bit. Great. We'll put that in the coals and we'll pick up this other iron and we'll work on that some. But you need to kind of have that. And like I said, the mechanisms in the game need to kind of allow for it, the possibility for it. GMs need to make sure that they're communicating all the stuff that when you're like, when the players realize, like, you ask them, like, oh, does anybody read Hobgoblin? And everyone's like, no. And you're like, well, you can't read it. And sometimes, if you see a GM will just drop it. Oh, you can't read it. Period. I think as a GM, you might look at your players, if they're all looking like, oh, well, whatever, you go, hey, but you can't read it, but there are sages who can, and you usually find them in towns or in different things. It's going to whatever, you want to kind of edge them along. And of course, if other things in the world also have sort of timelines attached and things like that, then I think you'll end up figuring out. But it's going to, there's lots of factors it's going to depend on. Let's see. Gus and Croc are going back and forth. So in Gus's game, a session is as a unit of time, which is interesting. I don't usually go that route because I don't have but it really depends, because I think in AD&D, maybe in OD&D too, maybe in BX also, sessions kind of had specific time frames attached to them, or Dungeon Delves did at least, where a Dungeon Delve took a week. So if you went to the dungeon and did your dungeon delving and back, regardless of if you spent 5 minutes in the dungeon and ran away screaming, or if you stayed longer term, like that was obviously a week's worth of time, which would mean that, practically speaking, in your kind of mega dungeony sort of game, that a session you could reasonably say or infer that essentially a session, regardless of how much you actually do, how many days you play, when you leave your session, it's a week. Like, that is, like, whatever you're doing, whether you end up playing for 1 day in a week or you're playing for 6 days a week, it's at least a week worth of time. That's kind of gone. And I guess that would, kind of sort of include travel. I don't know. In Gygax's famous dissertation on the tracking of time, I think he goes into some of the stuff where, and I think somewhere around there, it's kind of this idea of the sort of a week. I don't tend to play sessions like that. I just kind of let them run in whatever time they take. I don't think it's a bad thing, or I don't have anything against it, I don't have anything for or against it. I think that just, I guess from my part, I haven't set up games saying like a session is like a particular limit, because sometimes sessions are long, some sessions are short. we don't play long sessions, and I don't get to play long sessions, like 6 or 7 hours usually at most. They're probably, probably the longest sessions I get to play these days, the ones at cons are 4 hours usually. Games I'm running myself or I'm playing in mostly are really closer to 2 to 3 hours really, which is pretty short. So it just doesn't feel like if I did something where, to use the example Gus gave, disease is getting worse at the end of every session, you could get pretty grim pretty fast in terms of sessions that don't actually take a lot of time. So I don't tend to do that. I don't do the one. I haven't played anything that's done the 1-to-1 time either. So, and I don't have really a problem with it. I don't think it's going to cure all ills. I think sometimes it's put it like, this is the solution to all your problems, 1-to-1 time. And I think if you're playing in a West Marches, or what we call now a West Marches type game, with them was just the game because it was all these big groups playing. I think the 1-to-1 time makes a lot of sense. So you don't have different groups of adventurers in sort of parallel times, right? And that kind of played into why a dungeon delving session at least was about a week, so that it gave some buffer of like, okay, so that if on Tuesday so-and-so went to the dungeon with their gaming session, and then on Wednesday this other team's going to the same dungeon, you had this buffer where it wasn't like Dark Souls where the ghosts of one party is like coming at the same time as the other. It's like, no, they've been in and out, and then you're going. So I think part of the reason why they had this kind of idea of a session, at least when we went to the dungeon, being about a week, it was to give some breathing room between different groups who might be going into the same dungeon. But you're playing with one group doing one thing, then some of the necessities for that, at least on the dungeon time clock stuff, kind of goes away. I don't tend to have resting because I think Gus said he lets his groups rest in the dungeon. I think I'm open to it if there's a special case, but in general, unless you've cleared it out, probably not a good idea. But I don't have necessarily a hard and fast rule. And I like where some dungeons, what was it? I think we looked at, was it Tomb Robbers of the Crystal Frontier? I think had some secret area where they mentioned specifically, hey, if you get into this, if you discover this little secret passage, you can duck in there and rest because no one knows about it, which I think was a clever way of having like, oh, this is like an invitation or think about a bit. It's like, okay, so this was really hidden. So literally no one knows it's here. So yeah, that makes sense why you could duck in there, close the doors, and get kind of some rest. Crocker says, I think the longest session I had was like 9 hours. Back in high school, college, like we had some wicked long. We had sessions where I'd show up in the morning. We'd show up in the morning, game, break for lunch, game, break for dinner, game. And then, I don't know, like 12, 13-hour sessions at least. We would do it. Right. And when we're eating, it's not even really a break, maybe a break to go get your food, but you're eating, you're gaming and eating at the same time. Those are great. I don't know if I could do it now. It would be fun to do. That would be, honestly, one of the things would be really fun. And I wonder when I see these things where you have I've seen some of the big fancy YouTubers go on these like gaming, or they've, or they get sponsored to go and be part of these kind of like a weekend of gaming at some spot. And I wonder, like, is that how they work? Do they do it? Even then, I bet you those things are probably don't have as much gaming, just in terms of like literally time at the table that we would do. But it is what it is. All right, folks, I'm going to call this one a stream. Thanks for hanging out, Gus. It's nice to talk to you. Hope you won't be a stranger. Bruce, likewise, good discussion stuff all around. This is what I like. I love this. I wish you could do more of that. Not that I don't like reading the blogs and stuff, but sometimes, man, it's tough. It is tough. What's this last? Croco says, what about TPKing the part while the area is safe? Faction sends assassins. Yeah, assassins are am I in Tenkar's Tavern? Bruce, I was in ancient times. I was active on. I was more. I wouldn't say super active. I was a part of the tavern. I think I'm on the Discord there still, but I'm not. I'm not active in the tavern space, and have not been for a long time. But I think I'm still on the Discord and whatnot. So you can probably ping me there. I have my own Discord. There are but few of us, but it's a fun place to hang out, or other social media stuff as well. Whew. All right. Well, have a great rest of your day, night, whenever you end up watching or listening to this, folks. Yeah, that's all I got. Have a great weekend if you happen to be on a Friday, or if your weekend's already begun, because I know some folks are already on the next day. Though who is it that's in Australia that sometimes is here? Is that Meyer Trumpet? That's not you. You're not in Australia. I forget somebody is in Australia who's oftentimes here, and it's like, you're Friday, it's Mom's Saturday evening. It's like, whew. In the future, coming to us from the future, wherever you're coming from, whatever you're doing, be safe, be fun. Okay, it is Saturday. Okay. I thought so. I knew somebody was ahead of us. Well, I'll see you in the future. The rest of you enjoy the present, appreciate the past. Game on, and I'll talk to you later. There we go. I knew I was. See, I remember. There's some things I got to recall. All right, everybody. Peace out. Bye now.